The Karel were a chimeric cephalopoid species native to the planet Karol in the Outer Rim. They were radially symmetric, with tall, roughly cylinder-shaped bodies similar to those of sea cucumbers. Their skin was hard and covered in coral-like scales. They had 2 wings for flight and many tentacles for grasping and locomotion. Their heads were star-shaped, with 5 mouths, 5 eyes, and a 5-lobed brain. The Karel were a highly intelligent species, and they quickly developed advanced technology, with particular expertise in the areas of bioengineering and genetic modification. Using their science, plus a bit of arcane knowledge, they crafted their offspring species. Among their known offspring were the reptilian Eris, the arachnoid Charon T, and the protozoan Mayoi. Because of their great intelligence, the Karel grew proud. As it usually does, their pride went before destruction, and their arrogance would lead to their fall. When the architects, Telotny, Cold Dandasine, and Splendid App, brought humans to the galaxy, the Karel immediately became suspicious, and rightly so. However, rather than turn to the Celestials for help, the Karel leaned on their own understanding and began a plan to rid the galaxy of the architects and humanity. A plan they called the 4 Steps. The first step was self-elevation. Under the leadership of their ascendant, Keltark Pei, the Karel traveled to the planet Altair 4, where they built sprawling laboratories to experiment upon themselves and increase their intelligence. Their first experiments failed, so they moved on to the second step, surveillance. Because they distrusted the human race and suspected that the architects were behind the arrival of those strange mammals, the Karel kept a close watch on the Earth worlds, which were a group of planets the architects had made, moved, or even invaded to act as dwellings for humanity. From a secret observatory in the North Polar region of the planet Eartha, the Karel discovered other threats, more dangerous than humans, more evil than the architects, and opposed to both the Celestials and architects alike. These enemies motivated the Karel to move on to the third step in their plan, creation. Like the Muabin, who I talked about in the previous video, the Karel were gifted inventors. They had created a race of mechanical men who were built for peace but repurposed for war. They also created a massive supercomputer called the Nightmare Machine and a gelatinous servant race that they called Shoggoths. The creation of the Shoggoths was controversial. Many Karel thought they had collectively gone too far and decided to return to Karol. The rest, except for those still stationed on Eartha, went back to Altair 4, where they lay in wait for the fourth and final step, invitation. They were going to lure the architects to Altair 4 and destroy them once and for all. Or so they thought. The architects were more amused by the Karel and their creations than threatened, although Telotny was offended by how ugly the Shoggoths were. They hijacked the Nightmare Machine and the infernal beasts it pumped out, and turned the creations against the Karel in a massacre that decimated the Karel species. The survivors were taken to the planet Thule in Ilathurion, where Telotny and Cold Dandasine's son Typhagem, the same abomination who attacked the Drayton system, wiped their memories and renamed them. Enslaved by Typhagem, they were now called the Kathol. The Kathol served Typhagem well for a while, using their celestial-given talents to create his servant races, the Bogati, the Abruchi, and the Jarel, but Ascendant Keltark Pei had doubts. Those doubts would soon be confirmed by the arrival of another abomination, the creature called Dar Ox Strider. Darroch Strider was a massive creature that looked like a cross between a centipede and a dragon. He was the son of Princess Kusothaga, the many-legged daughter of Thargaragrat, the Queen of the Night. Thargaragrat was Typhagim's sister, which made Darroch Strider his grandnephew. But although they were family, there was no love between them. Darroch Strider soon learned that the Kathol were in fact the Corel, and he revealed this to Keltark Pei, likely to spite Typhagim. This knowledge troubled the Ascendant, who believed that the Kathol were just too far gone to ever again be the mighty elder race they were before. However, another elder race, the Javans of Yavin 4, got through to them. The Javans persuaded the Kathol that they could be good again, and succeeded in turning them back to the light. Together, they defeated two of Typhagim's servant races, but Typhagim himself remained at large, and the Kathol feared their old master's wrath. They fled to an isolated region near the very edge of the galaxy. There, with the help of the Fata of Anduin and the Ang-Ti, another elder race, they settled on a planet and summoned the Eris and Charon-Ti, offering them refuge from the Empyrean Wars. They also managed to convince some of the Abruchi to renounce Typhagim and embrace the light. When Typhagim's forces caught up to them, the Kathol built a crystalline storage device called the Life Well. They sealed up their collective life force and consciousnesses inside it, and left it under the protection of Darroch Strider, who had engineered his own array of species to fight against Typhagim. His forces prevailed against the armies of Typhagim and drove them away from the Kathol's new home. Unfortunately, it was then that the Kathol realized that although Darroch Strider was the enemy of their enemy, he was not their friend. When the time came to let the Kathol out of the Life Well, he refused. The Kathol would remain in the Life Well, while Darroch Strider, later known as the Dark Strider, took over their planet and drove away their offspring races. They would eventually become one with the Force, leaving behind a strange energy field that the inhabitants of the planet Kathol called the Ta-Re. The Kathol made their debut in the Dark Strider campaign, a 1997 expansion for the Star Wars role-playing game. Fitting the expansion's cerebral, Lovecraftian take on the Star Wars universe, they were named after H.P. Lovecraft's most famous creation, Cthulhu. In Supernatural Encounters, the Kathol are named the Corel, and conflated with two ancient alien races from influential works of science fiction. The Elder Things from At the Mountains of Madness by H.P. Lovecraft, and the Krell from the 1956 feature film The Forbidden Planet. The physical appearance of the Corel and their Shoggoth creations come from the former, while the laboratories on Altair 4 and the Nightmare Machine come from the latter. My design for the Corel took inspiration from various illustrations of the Elder Things, as well as Ursula from the 1989 Disney film The Little Mermaid. Yes, I'm completely serious. I made my illustration a cavern scene, with the figure of Darroch Strider looming in the background and a few Shoggoths oozing from the ceiling stalactites. Here's my illustration of the Corel. Funnily enough, this is actually not the image I had been working on in most of the video. I had to redraw it twice. First because the lines got messed up, and then the second time because I was using the wrong kind of paper for my markers. This was a fun piece to draw. I enjoyed giving it a more macabre atmosphere, and it taught me a valuable lesson about using the right drawing materials. As always, this is Jonathan signing off. Peace out, and may the Force be with you.